it's kind of a gut feeling, Nate. Really, the intuition that I have on how they answer the questions,
Mm-hmm.
I trust a lot. You're never gonna know for sure what's in someone's heart, and
Yeah.
so for me, it's a lot easier to hire good people that are like-minded and can get on board with the company vision and be committed to it, and then train to do the job.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. I have Cris Wingate with me today from Maxivolt. They are an American manufacturer of surge protectors for industrial applications and some other applications. I thought it'd be interesting to talk to Cris today because he has a couple really unique aspects to the company as vice president that he's put into place, and they're working very well. And the one of them in particular kind of goes in the face of what we traditionally hear with a lot of manufacturing facilities incorporating lean. And so I'm really curious to pick Chris's brain on that. So welcome to Manufacturing Insiders.
Thanks, Nate. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So let's jump right into the opposite of lean that has really helped you guys kind of deal with some of the tariff uncertainty and fluctuations. What are you guys doing to kind of combat that?
Yeah, so we've had a long-standing just philosophy around inventory management. I can't take credit for it. My dad's done it for a long time. We inventory about 200 parts to build all the devices that we build. And unfortunately, there's maybe a dozen to 2 dozen of them that we can't source from anywhere but Pacific Rim, Asian countries. And so because of that, and because of just the uncertainty, even, prior to COVID, prior to the tariff panic that we've seen recently, there can be tsunamis there. Whenever you're talking about geopolitics and then just the natural disasters and things of that nature, earthquakes in Japan, we source one of our primary components from Japan. And it actually happened years ago where there was an earthquake there and we couldn't get parts for 3 months or something like that. And so long ago, my dad put into place a philosophy to keep enough parts inventory to build 1 year's worth of finished product that we could deliver to our clients.
Wow.
Um,
What does that inventory add up to in dollar figures? I mean, I don't know if you want to share that or not.
yeah, it runs about 15% of what our overhead is. So it's a significant investment.
Yeah.
It's a real significant investment. But one thing that we've also noticed or see is that prices tend to just go up. They don't tend to drop. And so
Right.
making that investment and having a stable business, we've been around for 37 years. We have a lot of loyal clientele. So we aren't, knock on wood, too worried about inventory just being stagnant and trying to liquidate or having parts we can't use. But yeah, making that investment early, whenever we go back to buy again, the price has always ticked up at least a few percentage points. So
Right.
we see it as a money saving proposition that way. And then ultimately it's the big benefit and the real reason we do it. The primary reason we do it is to have product for our customers. Whenever our customers need product, we deliver, and that's our priority around here is taking care of them, going above and beyond to make sure we have what they need when they need it.
Right. So just out of curiosity, what type of components are you unable to source in the U.S.? And I understand that I can't be critical of that. Obviously, there's cost implications a lot of times of ordering in the U.S., et cetera. But are we talking kind of like rare materials that simply are not mined here, or what sort of stuff are we talking about?
Yeah, a handful of different types of semiconductors.
Okay.
Where either primarily I think it's environmental protections. The process of manufacturing these is very challenging to accomplish. Of course, we've seen efforts to reshore and semiconductor manufacturing trying to ramp up, and rare earth trying to ramp up here stateside or in North America, which that's when we go to source parts, we start in the USA. If we can find it here, even if we have to pay twice the price, we're going to source it here in America if we can. And then we go to North America. And if we can't get it done in North America, we look to Europe, and eventually we go to Asia when we have to, because that's the only place you can get a few things. So
right. How many different countries are represented like currently with your supplier base?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would venture to say 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yep.
So I would imagine that the sourcing position in your company is you have to have somebody that's pretty good at what they do. Like, how do you manage sourcing when it's so diversified?
Well, we have a great lady in purchasing, and then the guy in production that runs the actual production, building the products. They work in tandem together, and we have some relationships. Used to having strong vendor relationships was more commonplace. Now everyone has kind of gotten rid of the customer service and saved that overhead, and everyone's just getting online, typing in a part number, finding the cheapest place they can get the part. And of course, we have to play that game too, because that's just the world we live in today. But we really try to establish strong relationships with vendors, people that have knowledge. Like if we're looking for a certain fuse, and we've recently had a challenge with a lead time on a fuse, and for us internally to do the research to find out, okay, who are all the manufacturers that make an equivalent of this fuse, and what possible substitutes might be out there that just aren't obvious to us. And if we have that relationship with someone that's in the fuse business and they just know the ins and outs of it, they really have a much better grasp on the whole global arena of fusing and what's available and how things work and how to coordinate fusing with what we're doing, then that can be invaluable to us. So we strive to develop those relationships with multiple vendors. And then, of course, internally, we've got a good duo that work well together in finding things. They've gotten pretty savvy at it.
Yeah. So can you tell me, like, what's the, it seems like an obvious question, but you told me a story about it last time we chatted that I wanted to kind of hear again. So the real value that you're providing the customer, I mean, you're in some cases saving them huge amounts of money just in terms of what you preventing losses, right?
Right. Yeah. So we really believe surge protection is the generic term that's out there. We don't even like to associate ourselves with that. If you look at our website or look at our messaging and our content, we focus on transient voltage solutions. And so surge protection the industry has gone in a direction to where it's focused on the survival of the device and not so much equipment protection. They want the most robust device that they can have. So if it takes a certain magnitude of power surge, it'll stay online. But unfortunately, with a lot of those devices, the surge protector stays online, but the equipment actually fails or misoperates.
Oh, okay.
And so we've really differentiated into transient voltage mitigation. So we are clamping voltages at much tighter levels, and therefore we're a little more sensitive, but not to the detriment of our clients as far as the reliability of our equipment. We have a less than 0.1% warranty rate on devices that are warranted for 5 years. So our devices are holding up in the field, but they're also doing the original intent why people invested is to protect their equipment. And so that's where we're a little different. And directly to your question, our wheelhouse where we make the best match for our clients that two boxes, they operate expensive equipment, or they have an operation that downtime is very costly.
Sure.
So in process manufacturing, for instance, if you have all of your raw materials and you have several processes that are going through to develop a finished product, and now you have a controller that malfunctions somewhere in the middle of that process. Well, the line comes to a halt. You're not producing anything. Maintenance people are scrambling to figure out what's going on. It's been another benefit we've seen since COVID where people can't get replacement parts necessarily. So people are stocking up on replacement parts. So if something does go down, they can quickly replace it and get whatever their operation is back up and running. But we've had a lot of people more recently inform us that, look, we're doing this because if this motor goes down, we can't get another one for 14 months. They're just not
Holy
available.
cow. Wow.
And so that's the value we really provide, and where we focus our efforts is equipment reliability, operational reliability from the electrical perspective.
Yeah, I found that really interesting. That it sounds to me like your competitors, some of the competitors out there, are prioritizing the device that they're selling over the equipment that it's intended to protect. Is that what I understood?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the unfortunate reality of it for maybe consumers. For us, we see it as an opportunity, but the industry, driven by big corporations and through regulations and standards, that's at least a part of the philosophy that they've deployed and the strategy that they've deployed. And we fight against it. It makes our lives really challenging in that conformity assessment world. And we do have to differentiate ourselves through other means, because it's not apples to apples if someone's looking for a surge protector. And so we have a big educational process that has to take place in the onset of a relationship with the client. But
right. Because there's going to be some cost difference.
Definitely. Yeah. We're an American made product, and we provide service that is second to none. We go on site, we have conversations, we really work to understand our clients' priorities, where their vulnerabilities are, where potential bottlenecks are, and how can we mitigate that risk as much as possible, even when it gets just beyond transient voltage, power in general. We help people with their grounding and bonding practices, their wiring practices, their system design. Really
electrical risk assessment.
Yeah. Backup power solutions, things like that. We're currently working on, we just met yesterday, standing up a services division where we're going to more formalize that added value service that we bring to the table so that people can understand it better. Really, right now, it's just through conversations with our project management team that these things occur, but it's not formal. If you go to our website, you don't see a services page that really lays out the value that we can bring to people and gives it to them in a way that it makes sense to them. And so we're excited to be rolling out that piece. That's something that we really already do, but it just happens, like I said, through the conversations. It's not something formal that people could be looking for a solution for and find our website and read, oh, these guys can help me do this. So.
Right. No, I mean, I think from a marketing standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, because if you can assess the risk of a company, you obviously have the solutions for that risk. I've always kind of had the same challenge in my business too, because a big part of what I do and what we, as a company do is consulting, just kind of explain to people what's going on in the space, what they need to know, and all that sort of stuff. And it's something that I've never really monetized either in any way. There are marketing consultants out there, but it's just, I've never really had any success like selling that as a service. I don't know if people just expect that to be kind of wrapped in with the service itself, although in a lot of cases it's not. But no, for you guys, I think it does make sense because manufacturing companies are pretty big on limiting risk. And, obviously electricity is what runs their business. So it makes sense to look at that.
Yeah.
So that you told me a story about a company that you saved a ton of money and by eliminating, they were having consistent equipment failure because of electrical storms, I think it was.
Right. Yeah, I think what you're talking about, we had a client come on board in the past few months, and they were losing variable speed drives. Every time a thunderstorm would come through, they're losing variable speed drives. And of course, this time of year out here in Texas or all over the country, really, or at least in the South, there's a lot of thunderstorms, electrical storms. And so they had recently implemented our solution in a few of their locations, and the storms came through, and their head engineer at corporate reached out to us, just shot us a simple email and said, "Hey, I want you guys to know what you do works. We had several thunderstorms come through. We didn't lose any drives, and that has not been the case in the past.
That's awesome.
So,
And did the devices hold up as well?
yeah, no warranty devices on that.
Wow.
If we take a big enough surge or transient voltage event, we'll safely expend a fuse and go offline.
Yep.
We have a few different models. We have one that has a redundant, basically transient voltage surge suppressor in it, so it's kind of 2-in-1 in really critical applications. So you have a thunderstorm come through, it could take out the protection you have in place. Well, now another storm comes through before you're able to service that or replace that, you're back to being vulnerable. So we designed that product with those really critical applications in mind, so that they have time, they understand it needs to be serviced, that they're still protected, and now there's a window to service that or replace that device, that they don't have any vulnerability in that time.
What type of equipment are you typically protecting? I don't know if there's any way to kind of like broadly characterize it.
Yeah, so as you'll notice, just in your home or anywhere, everything that used to be primarily mechanically driven has had electronics integrated into it.
Yep.
There's controls in everything. There's sensors and everything. It's just proliferating like crazy. And that for us is a great opportunity, because these components that do the controlling, that do the sensoring and monitoring, they're very sensitive. Before, when you had a robust mechanical piece of equipment, it wasn't so sensitive when it comes to power disruptions or little load switching impulses. So anything that has integrated circuits is a big one for us. And then pumps and motors, conveyors, your typical industrial type of equipment, where if you have a motor that might be a $250,000 motor, to get it rewound might cost $80,000. Yep. Well, here's a couple $1,000s I can put out here to hedge and protect that, to prolong the life of that equipment, or in the case of a thunderstorm or something like that, prevent failure immediately.
Is there any way to, instead of doing it on a per piece of equipment basis, to almost kind of have a surge protector directly on the other side of that, wherever the power comes into the facility, so you're kind of protecting the whole facility from a surge standpoint?
Right. So with our service, we take a close look at every electrical system, and then beyond just the electrical system and what the application strategy should be for that, what equipment's running off of this, and how vital is that equipment to the operation? Is it cost effective, or does it make sense to make an investment in protecting that? Right. We like to work from the ground, from the equipment back to the main power source, just to understand the system, and then we'll deploy what's referred to as a cascaded approach, typically in a typical situation where we do have a device at the service entrance at your main distribution. We have a device there. It's going to protect you basically from those incoming electrical disturbances. So your thunderstorms, your utility faults, anything coming from your power provider or from the power you're generating, we catch it right there. That knocks it down to a certain level. Typically, that's a 480 volt service entrance is what most industrial operations have. So we catch it there. But then once you get within the facility, you're operating things at low voltage DC, you're operating things at 120 volts, 208 volts. So the level of protection we provide at the 480 volt, we're going to let through X amount of voltage, about 800 volts in a microsecond time frame.
Right.
that is just your motor, your 480 volt motor can sustain that all day. It's not going to harm it one bit. But then the controller that's tied to that motor, that's controlling the speed of that motor,
Yep.
it's running at 24 volts DC. And what we've done to bring that voltage down that's safe for the 480 volt equipment, that voltage is not safe for your 24 volt DC controllers, for instance. So we put another device in there that'll again knock that voltage down to what's a safe level for that controller. And so depending on the system, what they're running, like I said, we'll deploy different products in different locations to ensure that their goals are met.
Yep. So your kind of consultative approach and your really ability to provide good customer service, having product on hand so people can get what they need quickly. Those sound like great ways to kind of address the messaging to your market. When it comes to the big issue that a lot of manufacturers are having today, which is, acquiring and retaining employees, how are you guys doing with that?
I think, that's a complex challenge with a complex answer. There's some simple things I believe in just having consistent communication, good communication, be a safe place for your people to talk, and go out and proactively seek it and listen to them and understand what their challenges are. And don't, like, as a leader, I don't think it's my job to try to convince an employee of how they should feel or why they might be wrong about that. It's more about understanding how they feel, what their goals are, what they want, and doing whatever I can do to accommodate that. I think we as leaders, we can fall into a trap of, well, this person wants this, but they only want that because they have ignorance on this and they don't understand that or whatever. And then that's just divisive. That's just driving a wedge between you and them, where I'd rather see what we can do. Of course, they might have some ignorance around something that if I am able to provide some knowledge, it does change their perspective on a particular issue. But as long as I've educated and provided the knowledge and they feel a certain way, then okay, how can we be creative to accommodate what you need, that still protects the business and falls in line with our core values.
Yeah.
So I think
sounds
that's
like there might be has there been a recent situation where kind of that philosophy applied itself?
Yeah, I think so. People, they might want more money or want a different role in the company or want more empowerment, things of that nature. And I think as those go, ultimately we have to protect the company. And so as long as we can accomplish that when we're still protecting the company, then I want to do it. I want to be creative with it. And I can't just promote someone into a position that they haven't proven the competencies to be trusted to handle those certain responsibilities, but I can give them the opportunity and I can have really clear expectations, written down on paper or typed up in a document that, like, look, in order for you to take on this role, I need to know that you can handle A, B, and C, and that you can do it well. We have a lady that's going to be moving into bookkeeping soon. And so we lay out a path for her. She has no bookkeeping experience, but she was a decent math student and she's been around the business for 3 years. She's done some purchasing and things like that. So she has some experience and knowledge. But we got her enrolled in some bookkeeping classes and she's working, every month with our current bookkeeper to learn it. And we're building checklists and checks and balances in the system so that eventually it can be handed over to her. The trust is built. We know that she can handle it. We don't have to worry about it being done wrong. And so she's able to evolve in that position that she wanted to evolve into.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think it's great on a couple different levels, but I really like the idea that she didn't necessarily have any formal training in the area, but she's interested in it and she could potentially do well at it. I think a lot of companies out there are a little bit too focused on, what college you graduated from and, what degree you have, when in a lot of cases, you can do on the job training and probably get a much better education.
Yeah, I think so. It's always nice. I mean, it would be great to hire a CPA to come in here and handle all the bookkeeping and taxes and those things, but it's for a business our size, 13 people, we can outsource little pieces of that, but what we can do internally with someone that has the desire to do it, she's willing to put in the work.
Yep.
And it doesn't necessarily, I think she can probably do just as good of a job at keeping our books as someone that has a more formal education, as long as I still want to keep the resources out there to educate us, to make us better, but not have them as a full-time employee.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's something that I've, talking to a lot of successful companies, one of the things that I've observed is most companies that are successful in the employee area tend to have a really robust on-the-job training or ability for employees to take classes and progress, not only in their own personal life but also in the business. So I think that is really important. And I don't know if there's enough companies out there that kind of have that mindset. They're like, are you qualified for the job? Okay, you're hired. Are you not qualified for the job? No, you're not. So I think giving people a path to success is important.
Yeah, for us, I've done all the hiring for, I don't know, the past 6 or 7 years, and number one for me is, are you a culture fit? Can I trust you? Do I think you're a good person that's trustworthy? That's not going to sweep some issue under the rug and hide it.
Right,
If
right.
there's trust there, that you and I have a good relationship, and you know that if you screw something up, you can come to me immediately, let me know immediately, we'll resolve it. I'm not going to ride your ass about it or give you a hard time about it. We're going to
Yep.
look at what happened, how it happened, how can we prevent it from happening again, and let's fix it and move forward. And so when I'm hiring someone, that's the first thing. I don't Qualifications are like third or fourth down the list.
Right.
I'm trying to find good people that want to be a part of a team, be a good
Yep.
team player, that are willing to commit themselves to learning, being flexible, and doing whatever it takes to get the job done. And
Yep.
so for me, it's a lot easier to hire good people that are like-minded and can get on board with the company vision and be committed to it, and then train to do the job,
Yep.
rather than finding the qualifications at first and then bringing someone in that doesn't get along with the team or is constantly complaining and creating more problems and solutions, or
Right.
has some sense of entitlement. Um, you know, I hire people, good people, and then
Yeah,
we'll figure
I
out the
completely
skill
agree.
set.
Yeah, it's I think trust, the first thing that you mentioned is with me the biggest thing. Like I want honest people. And then I think the second thing I care about is excitement. Like, are
Yeah,
you excited to, figure out how to be better at your job, or how to, are you excited about the product? If you have those two things, I feel like in a lot of cases you'd be a good fit for me anyway. So
right.
you mentioned culture. I'm always curious because it's a really ambiguous word. I'm always curious, like, how do you, in a concrete way, verbalize your culture? First part of the question. Second part of the question, how do you physically, or verbally, how do you assess someone's ability to fit into your culture?
That's such a good question, and I've heard some really good definitions over the years. Um, I think culture is how how people act. Like if nobody's looking, um, are they gonna are they going to do the right thing if no one else knows? If it'd be the easiest thing in the world for them to do the wrong thing, but they're going to do the right thing. Culture's about, you mentioned trust. We've got a small team, which is a luxury, really, because I can be pretty choosy with who we bring on the team. But do they trust each other? And gosh, really want to do it for their teammates and not for themselves. Be a part of something bigger. There's some tedious tasks and going to work 8 to 5, day in, day out, week on, month on. After years, it can become mundane. And so I really try to, back to your excitement piece, try to inject different things in the business periodically to just bring that level of excitement back up. I want a culture where people are empowered and they know that I'm here to support whatever it is, whatever their ambitions are. And some people don't have those high ambitions. They don't want to raise the corporate ladder. And some people might want to gain experience here and go start their own business. And that's okay. Like, let's just be honest and upfront about that. And I'll help you to develop the skills and to go out and do that if that's what your goals are.
Right.
So
when you're in the interview process, because you've been doing the interviews for quite some time there, are there a specific set of questions that you'll ask to evaluate somebody from a culture fit standpoint? Does it kind of vary on a person to person basis? How do you kind of assess that?
Yeah, it's always evolving what those questions are, and I haven't had to do any hiring in a while, which is a good thing. We are looking to hire someone here in Q3. And so I do have a set of questions. Those do evolve depending on just experiences through the interviews. How did this question go? We should change that, or just learning, having ideas to make it better. It's kind of a gut feeling, Nate. Really, the intuition that I have on how they answer the questions, I trust a lot. You're never gonna know for sure what's in someone's heart,
right?
Kind of just picking up on the vibes.
Yep.
If it seems like they're just saying what they think I want to hear,
right?
Versus,
you can sense that.
Yeah. Versus maybe saying something that might not be too flattering about themselves. Like okay, this person's willing to be open and transparent with me. That's a good sign.
No, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And honestly, that's probably undervalued in the interview process, is the gut feeling, as opposed to, checking off boxes, yes or no questions. I'm the same way. I think we probably both can smell a bullshitter when we get in front of one. And,
right.
That's not what you want.
Yeah.
So we chatted a little bit earlier about the entrepreneurial operating system that I'm sure kind of flows into all of the other things that we talked about. But from what I recall, it made a pretty big impact on your company, your productivity, profitability, when you kind of put this in place. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Sure. So we were looking for a way to more formalize our business, have better meetings, more efficient meetings, have goals, achieve goals. And there's a local incubation center, business incubation center here in Amarillo. My dad was there, and there was a book there called Traction. And he asked the lady there about it, and she said, take it, read it. And so he read it, and I had actually been tasked with and put together a business plan that would accomplish these objectives the previous year at the end of 2020. I put together the plan. There were mixed feelings about it. There wasn't, when you're going to roll something out that that's going to make that big of a difference and shift direction that much, you really want a lot of confidence in it. You want everyone to be on the same page and feel good about it. Some people were on board, some people weren't. There was apprehension around it. And so my dad suggested, hey, everyone read this book and let's see what we think about this system. And of course, I think I've evolved some since then, but I'm a little frustrated that all the effort that I put into building that plan and everything just kind of got put by the wayside. But I said, I'm gonna read this book with an open mind and see what I think. And it made perfect sense. A lot of it aligned with things we already did or things that we knew we'd already tried to do or knew that we should be doing. It's just really logical. And so we all read that book. We said, yeah, let's do it. I was tasked with putting it all together, building out the system. Of course, I had the support of my leadership team and a lot of meetings with them to make sure we got it right. But it really gave the company a ton of clarity as to what the different functions, what are all the responsibilities that we have to do. Now, how do we group those into a function, and then we can assign one person, you're responsible for this function, and this function has this very black and white list of responsibilities that go under it.
Yep.
When you're a small business in the manufacturing industry, it's a business that really could use 50 or 100 employees to do everything. And we've got 13 or 14 doing it right now. And so we put on a lot of hats, we flex all over the place, and you can just get the swirling head, and it becomes difficult to know what the most important thing is to focus on. People are all not on the same page. And this just took all of that mad scramble, entrepreneurial, wearing different hats, kind of a culture, and put it into something that was very systematic and defined. And I think it gave people a lot of clarity and confidence, which if you know exactly what you're responsible for, and then you're able to execute that, and you're able to receive recognition for executing that, you feel better about your job. You become more efficient, more proficient at what you're doing. It's just like a snowball effect on what it does with the business, gaining that clarity. There's an aspect of it where we meet. So our business is separated into 5 gears, and I meet with those teams once a week. And so we have a standard agenda that we go through. We're very clear on what projects are currently working on, what are the hurdles that have come up in the past week that are impeding our progress on those projects. How are we going to move forward? We have quarterly goals that we're focused on that feed into annual goals.
Yep.
And then feed into a 3 or a 5 year plan as well. And so getting everyone on the same page, everyone has clarity on what they want to do. We all know what everyone else is doing, what the goals are, what our progress on those things are. It's just giving us a system to knock things out and check things off the list like we've never been able to do before. Once a quarter, we bring the entire team, all 5 gears together. And so they get to hear a report to understand, well, what's going on in finance, what's going on in production, what's going on the revenue side. And I think that helps too for people just to understand. If you're, a lot of companies or groups, organizations get siloed, and one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing. And so every 90 days, bringing everyone together and knowing, hey, 90 days ago, this year set out with these objectives. We accomplished A, B, and C. We didn't accomplish D, but this is where we're at. This is why we didn't accomplish it. And on E, we decided to change course because it was a shitty goal. Having that flexibility as well. Circumstances change, better ideas come up. We don't want to just force feed an objective through because we're so obsessed with checking off the list to make us feel good about ourselves. If it was a bad idea, we can be flexible and scratch that.
Right. So in terms of like physical deliverables, what could you say you've seen, whether it be the profitability of the company, loss and, eliminating wasted time, like what would you say the deliverable of implementing this has been, if you could kind of summarize it?
Well, one of the first things when we shifted to the business side was retention, and I think it's definitely made a major impact on our retention. Um,
Why is that?
it's just what I was saying about people knowing what their roles and responsibilities are, and knowing what their teammates are working on. You eliminate a lot of that, any grudges or tension that can exist in a team, that I think in a lot of cases is what drives people away.
Mm-hmm.
There are cases where people are like, look, I just have to make more money, or I'm just not passionate about this. I want to go pursue my passion. There's circumstances that's not going to prevent people from leaving.
Right.
But other than that, I think people just want to come somewhere and be a part of know that what they're bringing is bringing value to the team and
Right.
helping the team accomplish their objectives. A place where they can come and be happy. They can get up in the morning and say, I'm looking forward to going to work today, and not, God, I got to go to work today. So I think the fact that it's brought the clarity, it's brought the galvanization of our team,
Mm-hmm.
that we are social creatures. We need each other, and being a part of a group of people is something that people have to have, and when they have that, they want to keep it. So
Right. Yeah, that honestly, it makes a ton of sense, because if people clearly understand what their responsibilities are, and then you're having a team meeting to evaluate how well they delivered on those responsibilities, there's a pretty clear feedback mechanism, which I do think is very important with employee retention. Because if they do something great and no one sees it, that's not going to be great for them. Whereas if they do something great and you're evaluating and you're looking at it with the team next month, and you say, hey, so and so did a great job with this, they actually finished what they started out to do. I can definitely see how that would make a big difference in the culture and the amount of gratification the employee gets out of their job. So I do like that a lot. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna write that book down, because I want to read that. Traction. So, Cris, what challenges are you experiencing in your business right now? Have there been any resources that you've kind of had your eye out for? I kind of like to have a little segment of each podcast like this, just in case there's somebody out there listening that might have the solution to what you need.
I think I mentioned we had a few sourcing challenge. That's one that we've been trying to overcome, and we've got a solution in place now. It's taken some tweaking of our product, but I think we're in good shape on that. Building out our revenue team has been a challenge. We've got an initiative in Q3 to hire someone. That's the hire I was talking about. Right now we have 5 on that team, and it's hard to grow. It's such a niche industry, and it's not easy to sell if people aren't just like out there saying, I need transient voltage mitigation.
Right.
That's what I got to have. They don't have to have it to run. So bolstering that revenue team's a challenge we're facing right now. I mean, we're pretty good. Luckily, this EOS has us in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
No,
that's great.
We're always looking to bring out something new. I think our R&D, a new feature, something exciting to push out there to our existing client base, to diversify what we can provide them. And so evolving what our offerings are, which I mentioned, we're doing that with services, kind of formalizing that, but from a product perspective,
Yep.
is another challenge that we have. We're dipping our feet into the AI world with different AI tools.
Okay. Yeah.
And experimenting with that. We're not making any big investments right now, but we're really trying to make small investments, money and time, to play with things and explore and have something more robust in place. One of the ideas that we have, it feeds into a lot of like the challenge with growing the revenue team. For one, is to have this AI brain that essentially will be, it will know, because we do things so differently than the industry. We could bring in someone from a competitor that's got 20 years of experience selling surge protection in the same markets that we serve, but there would still be a huge learning curve because we just do everything differently.
Interesting.
And so using AI to inject all of this knowledge that we have through various
Okay.
mediums,
Okay.
so that now we have a brain, we have a large language model that has a chat interface that we can
Hmm.
ask it questions, and
Yeah.
really, really our onboarding and getting people up to speed on what exactly it is we do, how we do it, why we do it that way. And we can ask it. My dad started the business 37 years ago with a couple of buddies, and then we have another engineer here that's well seasoned. He came from the process manufacturing industry prior to being in this industry, and so he's got that unique perspective of our client, being that guy that's out there in the field trying to keep this plant running.
Right.
He's been in those shoes, and
Yep.
so those guys just have a wealth of knowledge and experience that I want to get downloaded into an AI
Yeah.
tool. And
Yeah.
so we can sit there and ask the questions, and we can have it build a training program for us,
Right.
build tests and quizzes. And
Yeah.
that's
No, that's cool. I'm actually kind of familiar with the concept. I have a friend who started a company called IntelliChat, and that was the big goal of it. I think their main focus was in the healthcare space, but I think it could really be applied with anybody, but really kind of um, centralizing the knowledge base of a company so you can use it for things like training programs. That's very interesting. And I actually talked to another interesting company yesterday that they are kind of AI engineers, and they want to help manufacturers assess what areas of their business they could use AI in and then develop solutions. One of the things they really talked about was like things like production scheduling. But really, there's a lot of different applications.
there's so many. Yeah, it's
But I think it's good you're thinking about it because this is the way of the future. And I mean, I think as American manufacturers, we have to be very, very aggressive about adopting new technology and being better at our processes because we're always going to have competition globally. You know, the tariffs aren't going to fix everything for US manufacturing. We still have to be really better at the value added portion of manufacturing.
agreed. It's something, that's why we're just at least dipping our toes into it and coming up with ideas, because there are ways it can help our business that we can't even imagine.
Right.
And I'll admit, when it came out, and of course everyone's like, well, we're not going to have jobs anymore, and AI is just going to ruin the world. It's like you can either take that mindset, or you can look at it and say, it's coming whether we like it or not.
Right.
Let's choose to embrace it and figure out how we can leverage it
Yep.
and utilize it to move into the future. So
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But yeah, if you want to chat some more about that down the road, I'd be happy to make some introductions with some people that I know that are kind of already working on these problems. But
sure, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, hey, Cris, I mean, this was great. I think you guys are doing an awesome job over there. Obviously, a very important product for a lot of the other manufacturers that we're talking to. So we'll throw your information in the bio if anybody has a need on the surge protection aspect of things or transient voltage. Um, we'll make sure they can reach out to you. But thanks a lot for coming on today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Appreciate that. And I think what you're doing over there is awesome too. I want to understand more and learn more about what you guys are doing at your marketing agency. And thanks for having me, man. It was fun.